Hey, blue collar millionaires, we're back again. We're here with Dr. John Crutchfield today, a friend of mine, somebody I've invested in, somebody I really believe in, and he's got a great story, and he's here to tell us about it today. Welcome to the show, John.
Welcome, man.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Chris. Good to be here, man. I watch y'all every week, so now I get to be on here. It's pretty cool.
John, you're from Mississippi? How far from Chris?
Oh, man. Tupelo, Mississippi is where Chris and I met. We actually met at a meetup, a real estate meetup. I guess it's been about 4 or 5 years, Chris. What do you think?
Yeah, pre-COVID.
Yeah, yeah. And now I split my time between Tupelo and Dallas, and still stay pretty connected to Chris. Stay connected to you because honestly, the conversation that I had with you seems like it was about a year ago now, or a little over a year. It just really blessed my life, man. I flew over to Raleigh, North Carolina, to a mastermind. Frankly, because I was seeing some of your stuff online, your positivity, some of the quotes that I literally take these Facebook posts that people make and I print them out and I put them on a wall. And I said, I want to meet this guy in person. And I remember one of the things that you said when we met, you talked about how you systemized your business and how you automated your business. But then one of the things you said is really changing my business right now is when I told you how much money I wanted to make a year, you asked me, well, why not 7 figures? Right. And I was like, dang, like I hadn't even thought about ever making 7 figures a year. But now I'm talking to somebody who thinks that way. And to this day, like that sticks with me. So I'm glad to be on here. Glad to have met both of you. And Chris, I mean, this guy's a hustler. Chris and I have done business together. I know him very well. I know his wife, his family very well. He's an honest guy who's a hustler, and he's helped me a whole lot and just helped me think bigger, as it says on the back of his screen there. So, Chris, I'm thankful to you as well for the relationship.
Well, dude, me and Kevin both wanted you on here because you've got a pretty incredible journey. Coming from a W-2 background world, traditional family, that grew up putting the 401ks together, waiting on the pension. That's what was taught to you. That's what a lot of our viewers have been taught as well. But man, you broke out of that mold and really have been extremely successful. And I think it's because of several different attributes that you've implemented, like getting in the room and listening to people that were further in the path. Will you tell us kind of where you came from and then bring us up to today?
Sure, man. I appreciate the kind words. I'm a regular guy. I grew up in Tallahassee, Florida. My parents still live there. My mom's a teacher. My dad was an accountant for Florida State. He's still an accountant. And I grew up in that a household where there was 5 of us living in the house. See what that is. Sorry. There's 5 of us living in the house, and it was a 600 square foot house. Like we didn't know that we didn't have a whole lot of money because my dad came home every day at 5 o'clock, and we said hey, and my mom was there. We played outside most of the time, so I guess that's why we didn't know we had a small house. And it was just a really regular upbringing. When I got out of high school, I had been told like, hey, do well in school, you'll get to go to college. Do well in college, you'll get a good job. Then when you get a good job, get more degrees so you can get promotion. And I kind of just did what was expected of me and kind of followed that route. So got out of high school, ended up going to Florida State because that was the school in my hometown. Met a beautiful woman that I've been married to for 16 years now. And just got that job as a teacher because you get weekends off and you don't have to work holidays, right? And you always need teachers, so there's not going to be like a downturn. You get fired.
Right.
That was my thinking. Literally, was my mom had always done it. Let me do it. Got that job. Some people kind of saw something in me. Some really inspirational teachers said, "Hey, like you should be a principal at a school. You could do better than the principal here." So I went back to school, did that, and then at the end of the day, what it boils down to is you can do really really good in a W-2 as a career, but you're not in control of your pay and you're not in control of your time. And so I remember the feeling that I got one night when I was a principal of a high school. I was on the sideline. My son is 2 years old. He's walking on the sideline with me, like at the game, which is great for community, right? But horrible as a dad that I've got my 2-year-old on the sideline in November when it's cold because I have to be there, you know? And my wife just kind of pushed me to start thinking differently about what I should be doing. So I took a job as a professor at a college. Tough decision because believe it or not, you make a lot less as a professor at Ole Miss than I was making as a principal in Memphis. And so it took a $60,000 pay cut. I can't say that I did it like with a smile. I did it as an angry husband that was like, I got to do this. But what I found out is that as a professor at a college, I had time, right? Like now I was teaching like class on Tuesday and Thursday nights. All of the daytime was like, what do I do with this? Because I had been fussing at other people's children in Memphis for years. And just so happened that opened up my mind to be able to have some conversations with people that were doing different things. One of my best mentors was an elder at my church who owned a portfolio of rental properties. And we were at church one day afternoon. He was on his computer. He had the Excel spreadsheet up. And I just walked over to him and said, hey, what are you doing? And he explained to me his portfolio, kind of piqued my interest. And I ended up inviting him over for dinner with him and my wife. And I remember in the conversation, it's like this key phrase that he said, but he said, hey man, like if you can run a school, you can run a business. Now, all the stuff I've told you, all of that experience, all of the teaching that I did to kids, not one time had I ever thought that I could own my own business, which means not one time had I ever told other people's children that they could own businesses either.
Yeah.
I was the traditional like W-2, follow the W-2 all the way. And so that's why it's pretty amazing just to be in the conversation with you guys, because I don't have this background at all.
That's impressive though, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you got some pretty awesome accolades. First of all, to have the doctor in front of your name, that took some major work and discipline and dedication. And then the fact that you were so willing. I had a dad that was an entrepreneur, so that was not foreign to me. And you came from a background where they were all W-2. That was what was comfortable. And then you just jumped because your mindset changed when that mentor mentioned, and you were able to borrow his belief in yourself, which is what was so cool. He said, dude, if you ran the school, you could run a company.
Yeah.
And instantly it put the light bulb on. So that's pretty awesome. So I want to know how you got into your first real estate deal, built a portfolio, and now operate a couple of different service-based businesses.
Right. So I definitely was not one of the like burn the ships and jump all the way in thing. When he said that, I still kept my job for 3 or 4 years. Right. I still worked alongside the real estate business. I definitely would say I'm a little bit more conservative on when to jump and leave your job. Some of it was like little things like I need insurance, right? I need health insurance, and I don't want to have to overpay for health insurance. But a lot of it was wanting to feel like there was a firm foundation that I was launching from. So I started listening to podcasts on my way to work, and with some of my free time, I started watching YouTube videos. I started just everything I could get my hands on. One of the craziest stories that'll make people laugh is on the way to church in the morning. We had like a 20-minute commute to church, and I would have my little AirPod in on this side so my wife couldn't see it. So on the way to church, I would be listening to podcasts about real estate investing, and she would be talking, and I would be like, mm-hmm. And one day she caught me. So that made me kind of that gave me a lot of confidence, getting the knowledge, hearing people say the same things over and over. If I'm on a flight now, or if I'm driving somewhere, I'm still listening to that stuff. Yeah. And some of it is not like different than before. It's just the repeated information over and over again can cause you to think about things differently than the way you think about, like I was trained to think about them for 30 years.
Yeah.
So
I
ended up, anyways, just to get into that first property, ended up listening to a lot of podcasts, felt like I had a decent understanding of the process, and I started making offers, which now when I teach people how to do this, right, like I start with that. Like you should be making offers all the time on all kinds of things, just start conversations. But the way that I would make offers, which is kind of funny nowadays, is I would go on Craigslist, if y'all remember Craigslist,
Yep.
or Zillow, and I would find the for sale by owners, right? I at least knew that you have to start with for sale by owners. And I would do this with realtors too, but I would just text them, hey, I don't have any money. Will you sell or finance me your property? Because that's the only way I knew to get started is like, I don't, that sounds like a great pitch, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I literally could go back to, iPhone keeps all of these messages, but I can go back to 2014, 2015, and I could see how bad I was at this. Like no conversation starters, no getting to know people, just copy and paste. Hey, I'm John Crutchfield. I saw you have a property listed for sale. I don't have any money. Will you finance it to me? Like over and over and over again. So the first property that I would say like was my first property, that's what happened. One of the guys said yes. He said yes. Meet me at the house.
Insane.
Yep, 700 Smoky Mountain Drive. I still own it today. Right? And so ended up coming up with $3,500 to put down. Right, paid him $82,000 for the property. Did not have any clue. Like it just tells you how clueless I was. Put all of the renovations on a credit card. Right, went and bought the paint. Went and bought the stuff. Me and my wife painted the house myself. And because I was still trying to figure this out, didn't think it was going to be a business at this point, right? I just knew I needed to do something. When we got done, guess what my wife decided? Hey, this would be a good house for my mother to live in.
Yeah.
So we did all of that. And then it ended up being a house where it was a liability, right? Because her mother was there. She didn't pay rent. We just helped her mom. And we spent the next year and a half using our W-2 to pay off the house. I mean, to pay off the credit card debt.
Yeah.
And didn't know that I had added value to the house, that the house would have had a higher appraisal, didn't know a whole lot about refinancing. So, that was the first kind of deal, right? About a year and a half later, the first deal, still listening to the podcast, still watching the YouTube videos, I made an offer on another property that was listed on the MLS. And this was a 4-unit building that a realtor had listed. And I was like, ooh, okay, I think I can afford this. And I think the realtor had it listed as an owner finance. So I went over, talked to the seller, talked to the realtor. They wanted $25,000 down for this 4-unit, and they were going to finance me the rest. The realtor was going to get her commission, and ended up just getting scared. Right? Like scared of doing that deal. 25,000 at that point, I didn't have it. So I was going to have to like really stretch and figure it out, like use credit cards, take a little bit out of this little pot that I wasn't supposed to touch, all of that. And the realtor ended up telling me like, John, it seems like you don't have enough money for this. Like, why don't you just buy this little $15,000 house that I know about down the street? And that was a little single family. That was 15 grand. So I ended up letting that 4-unit go and using a buddy. And I'm saying this on YouTube. So what if it's illegal, y'all don't judge me, but ended up using a buddy who swiped my credit card. I had a $15,000 limit. He swiped my credit card, old Trails and Treads. I guess I definitely shouldn't say who that was. I don't think he owns it anymore. So don't go looking that up. But yeah, he swiped my credit card. He gave me 14 grand. He kept 1,000. He said, go do your deal. And now I had 14,000 to buy this house cash, right?
Wow.
I used this 14,000 and another credit card to renovate it. This is still me and my wife, my kids, painting the house, putting the floors down. This is us doing the work, which now it sounds crazy to me, but me doing the work. I think I even went to Lowe's a couple of times and just picked up some guys to help me do like change the tub and stuff like that. But ended up finishing the house with about 32 grand in it. Still own this house now. And using the mentor from the church, he introduced me to one of his bankers at Community Bank. I went and talked to his banker. The banker comes out and looks at the house. He's like, John, I think this house is worth like 80 grand. And he's like, how much did you put into it? And I'm like, 32. He's like, I think I could loan you like 65 against this house. Right. And I was like, oh, like, how many times could I do this?
Yeah.
He's like, how many of these you bring me, I can do them for you. Right. As many of the times as you can bring me these deals, I'll do them. And the rest is history. I kind of got addicted to the BRRRR strategy, buying the house, renovating it, renting it out, and then refinancing it. And that's still a very core model of my business today. And you can do this with single families, multis, commercial properties. You can do this with businesses. But you can buy the property, fix the problems, get it running right, and then get a bank to refinance and cash you out. And it really is a great strategy for somebody who doesn't have a whole lot of money to get started.
Dude, I love that. There's so much to unpack that you in that period of time, because I see that you borrowed belief from someone else that was successful. You adopted the knowledge from someone else that was successful. You took action. Before you took action, you actually immersed yourself in the education of that industry. And then I love the fact that the simple action you took. I mean, the fact that you just copy and pasted that one liner of, I don't have any money, would you own or finance? And then you ended up actually getting something. And I think that's where most people just stall out, is they never move forward with the action. They'll sit there and just take in information. I mean, do you think there's something that gave you the boldness to actually take that action? Something in particular, or was it just a part of your nature, or like what made you make that first step?
Yeah, I don't know if I had the like a fear about the first step. I've always been kind of a high achiever, so I've always wanted to do good at whatever I do. But no, man, I mean, it was kind of logical. Like, if you don't make offers, nobody's ever going to say yes. And now, like, I would never teach anybody to send that message. Like, it was so bad. But
it worked.
But it worked. And I've been thinking about like book titles lately, because I have all these great book ideas. And I'm just like, it doesn't work until it works. So
Right.
just start making offers.
Right.
It really was pretty cool. And a funny part about that is that guy, that seller financed me that first deal, is now an investor with me. We talk all the time. Like, he knew when he saw that message that I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So he decided to kind of do the deal with me, and the relationship has grown over time.
Yeah. So we talk a lot about building teams, because I know as you've expanded, you said it's funny to think about how you and your wife and even your kids were remodeling these houses. But now I look at it and I think it's funny as well that you used to remodel houses, because I have an insight on what your team looks like. I mean, you've got maintenance people, office staff. You're able to split your time between 2 locations. And you've got a large portfolio. Like, tell us about because it doesn't matter, real estate business, you've got a real estate business at this point. And building a team is the only way that you can do that. How has that journey look like, and what's some of the things that's helped you build that team?
Yeah, so a major part of building teams for me, because I don't have the background in business, has been mentorship. So finding people that have helped me, like, just guide me. And a lot of times they're people who've already have businesses, they've established businesses. I mean, Chris and I, we brainstorm all the time, like stuff you're working in your business, how you hire
Absolutely.
people, how you train people. But yeah, I mean, we started a real estate meetup 4 or 5 years ago, right here in Tupelo. We had people coming that were established investors, right? But we were these young people that kind of were just getting started, but they saw us as an authority because we were starting to meet up and getting people together. One of the guys in there he owned about 30 to 40 rentals, Mike Alford. And I remember having maybe 10, 15 rentals and starting to say, when do you hire an employee?
I remember you asking that question.
You remember that? Yep.
Yeah.
So when do you hire an employee? And his answer was like, you'll know. That's what he said. but you probably should know. You probably already need one if you're starting to ask that question.
Yeah.
Yep.
I hired my first employee who, has gone through fire with me and joined us, left us, come back, still works for me now. And, the rest is history, because once I hired her, I think we were at 15, 20 rentals. And that same year we got to 100 because I had somebody else totally focused on managing the tenants, and I could focus on finding the deals and raising money. So she's been an amazing blessing. But that really comes from mentors that can tell you when to take the next step or give you advice on when to take the next step. And mentors can be, it's not just older folks. It can be like people in a mastermind. Like Chris and I are in several masterminds together. Kevin and I are in several masterminds together. And it doesn't have to necessarily be somebody older if it's somebody with more experience or experience that you don't have yet. I have a couple of VAs that we use right now. Like, that's totally Kevin. Like, totally Kevin.
It can also be just something real niche like VAs.
Yeah.
It could be a mentor for one thing. And then it's so important. When you were talking about, I totally agree with people ask me about leaving W-2. I believe you have to have momentum before you do it. And you should be doing it on the off hours. When I hear people, like, especially if they have a family and they're like, yeah, I'm just going to quit, man. I'm going to go all in. I'm going all in. I'm like, don't do that. Prove to yourself that you're going to, if you won't do it at nights, mornings, weekends, grind it out, listen to those podcasts all the time. I think it's so risky. When I see smart people do it like that, they can do it very fast, over 6 months. They're just almost always successful. I watch them. They're always successful. And when I see people just kind of like just jump into it, it's like 5 months later, they're right back where they are. I hate that plan. Prove to yourself that you're willing to do it and to put all that work in, and those people are always successful.
Well, stress kills creativity. And when you got financial stress on you, it makes it much more difficult to be creative. I agree with how John did it. And I've heard other people in our groups, in our network and circles that have done it the same way. And it's a much better plan, in my opinion, because it keeps, now if you're single, young, got no responsibilities, maybe so, because then all you're doing is fending for yourself. It's easier to start over and to lose.
You don't have to replace your income, especially if you have a good one. You're a professor, you're a principal. You just have to get momentum where you can see it. You're like, okay, in like 6 months, I'm going to be here, or 8 months. Then you can do it. I don't think if you're making $100,000, you have to get to $100,000 on the side. But if you're getting to 40, 50, you're like, yeah, it's go time. Let's go.
Dude, tell us about your recent business acquisitions and startups, and kind of how that process has looked and been. I mean, at this point, you've got a portfolio, you've got a team built, they're running that. You were able to focus as the genius, the visionary for the company. I feel like your unique ability is that communication with sellers and doing the acquisitions part. And now I've watched you transition into these businesses, these service-based businesses. So I would love to hear more about what that felt like, what that looked like. Tell us.
Yeah. So you make it sound so much better than it is. These are works in progress for sure. And again, a lot of this is coming from mentorships, coaching that I'm receiving. We all went to the Mark Evans DM event this summer, and one of the things that I try to do is, after I get information, I try to speed the decision making up, like, very quick. I want to take a deliberate action as soon as I hear something. So if I hear, Kevin say, hey, I run my whole business making 7 figures a year with VAs, I'm like, okay, well, let me get some VAs in place, right? And Kevin and I met the week after we met in person. We did a podcast episode together, and then I was really taking notes, and then I said, let's put VAs in place, right? Or in this case, Mark Evans, we go to the event. A lot of people are talking about businesses. I've kind of been primed on it a little bit, but the first thing I start doing is I'm on Facebook. Like, let me find a business to buy, right? That might not be the best way to do it. And I think due diligence is good. I think that the business that I bought this summer was a lawn care business. Already had 40, 50 yards established. Already had a couple of guys on the crew cutting the yards. I'm talking to Kevin the whole time, like, is this something I should do? And then I'm also thinking about how I could make this work for Tupelo, because I already have lawns, right, that I'm cutting as a part of my property maintenance company, property management company. We cut yards for my own stuff. So I'm the client already. And so I've been learning, let's say it that way, how to run these businesses. It's different, right? There's some positives, right? We got deposits coming in all the time. We got things like that. But it's also different when you're serving third parties, because now it's not whether I'm satisfied, it's whether the customers are satisfied. And my standard might be a little different when it's my stuff. So we're trying to figure that out. Some key things that I picked up over the last few months as I run these businesses is like the team becomes even more important. Like making sure that people's roles and responsibilities are very clear, who's responsible for what, has been like essential. And then training people into those roles has been essential. So like the weekly huddles, the daily huddles sometimes, to make sure people know what they're supposed to do, where they're supposed to be, what their expectations are, has been a new thing for us. But a good thing about it is, since I have the real estate business kind of established, we've worked out a lot of kinks just in business. Now, like, I get to hire people to do these things instead of it being me doing them. So hired a great sales manager for our service-based business, Property Works Tupelo. And man, he's just hit the ground running. It seems like he's building out stuff every day. And I'm just like, okay, I got to keep up with his pace, which is what I would say the second thing that I've really learned is having salespeople or a sales process that's always generating leads can just be beautiful for a business. And I'm blessed to have Tim. He's in the office today over here.
What does your sales process look like?
Yeah. So for our third party business, I mean, we start with marketing, right? So we try to get it out there on Facebook. We boost ads. Since I have properties all over the city, our for rent signs now double as property work signs. We do maintenance, repairs, remodeling, right? Since we have properties where we sit those signs out anyway, we just doubled the sign. On our vans, that's what we did on the vans. We already had vans that say we buy houses. Now it says we buy houses, we do maintenance, repairs. So we just kind of like used some of the marketing channels that we already had to generate more leads for the property management business. What's also been cool is that all of the relationships that I made in building a portfolio are with people who own properties who need work done. So I was able to hand my list of contacts to my sales guy and say, hey, these are all the people that need help. And I know they need help because we mastermind all the time on phone calls and they tell me that they have maintenance issues. So he's picked up a lot of recurring business from those relationships as well. We use neighborhood apps, right? The neighborhood apps to try to get the word out there about the company. And we're big on reviews, which I picked up from Chris Garrison, right? And making sure that every customer that's happy leaves a review. Because people like doing business with people that their friends do business with. So we've been doing that as well. But right now, customer calls in, we use House Call Pro, right, as a kind of a service-based CRM. The lead goes in CRM, somebody in the office schedules it. And then we're kind of trying to find the next lead. So I think some of the areas that we're looking to grow right now is just from an operational standpoint, we're always trying to figure out how to find more guys. How do we find more workers to help? And then how do we have efficient production management that can help, like, make sure these guys are actually doing things in an efficient way? That's been a challenge for us, and just making sure, hey, they actually come to work, then they're actually we can get the most out of them when they're at work. That's just a part of the process, I think, that we're still trying to figure out.
I think that's a pretty big issue that most service-based companies have. I mean, shoot, I still struggle with that issue. We still look at efficiencies. I was just having a conversation with one of my management team members, and he said, I feel like we're just taking too long. And I said, well, why do you think we're taking too long? And so we established, okay, if we increase our training for our leadership, and then if we develop checklists that will simplify the process so steps don't get left out. And then as that training is given to our leadership, it's going to increase their confidence level so that they have a more commanding voice. Because I've noticed, I think it's good to do these little drop-ins on the team. If you just pop in and show up, and preferably not you as the boss, because they know that you've got the hiring and firing power. But if you have a management member that shows up and kind of just observes without being obvious that they're observing, they can see where the inefficiencies are. So a lot of times my leadership's over here doing their job, but then the team is standing around and going at a much slower pace. So they'll finish a task and then they'll wait 10 minutes before they go and ask for another task, what they need to do next. And those little inefficiencies they'll kill your time. They'll kill your profit margins as well. So, but training, I think, is one of the things that is going to help build the confidence in the leader. So a good leadership on site is very helpful. And then that good CRM system, the House Call Pro, they've had some good new updates as well that I think are going to be able to help everyone that uses that program.
Yeah, I've seen it improve over time as we've started using it more.
Yeah. Some detailed stuff about your operations. How do y'all track time?
Yeah, so we use an app right now called WorkYard. The maintenance guys log in to WorkYard. It tracks where they go. It uses a GPS type system. And so they're required to be clocked in when they're at a site. We can see how long they're at the site. We can see how long they're at the hardware store getting materials. We can see where they're going, and then we can see when they clock out. So that's how we've been using that.
That's excellent.
Yeah, that's a good point. What is your benefit? Do you offer benefits to your team? Like, I know some people say people are motivated by culture. Some are motivated by money. I feel like it's a mixture of both. So I feel like if you don't have a good enough offer, you're never going to get the attention of some valuable players that would really help and boost your business. What's your experience there with acquiring new team members?
So one of the things that I'm learning is that good people attract other good people. And I think that that's something that's helping us improve a lot this year, is that I've hired some really good people in key positions, like in my property management company and my sales, like in the property work side. They're attracting employees that are just of a whole different level than I attracted before I had them in place.
That's excellent.
So, my office manager, who we just picked up, was a direct hire from my property manager, right? My sales manager has recommended maintenance guys from his prior experiences. A couple of our best employees that on the maintenance side are referring their friends to come work here. And that's kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, are we offering benefits? If I'm honest, we're offering them based on who the person is and the skill sets that they're bringing. Not really in a position yet to load somebody up with benefits. Okay. But one of the things that I learned from Chris, we did our deal together, and how you make offers to employees. I was one of those people, I'm just like the text message where I say, hey, I don't have any money. I would just tell employees that I don't offer benefits, right? And that's a big turnoff. And then I saw what Chris was doing, and I was like, well, you would never say you don't offer benefits. You offer benefits, but maybe it's employee paid.
Yeah.
Right. A totally different way of phrasing that. And then I also learned that for key people, you do what it takes to keep them.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So for those key people that are in place, we're selling a property right now to provide benefits and bonuses to a couple of my key people, because I don't want to lose them. They've shown that their value is there.
I like that you just brought that up, because it really does highlight the fact that the entrepreneur has a responsibility to really provide for a team. And sometimes we make sacrifices. The fact that you're selling a place so that you can afford those things. I heard Grant Cardone say this once. He was on stage and he said, yeah, I just lost. He called out his name and he said, you know what? I'm not mad about it. He said, this guy just hired one of my best team members. And he said, but that's on me because I didn't do enough to keep him where he was not willing to leave me. And sometimes we get jaded as business owners, and our best folks will get another offer, and because we weren't willing to keep increasing their incentives and keep a player likes to move, they like to progress, they don't like to stay stagnant. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And I've watched you do that as you've built your team. I've seen, we've discussed, and your pay has gradually gotten higher. You've learned how to offer more incentives, and I'm seeing your team really get established with some A players. And just like Tim, when he called me and hit me up and said, hey, Chris, just want to let you know we're in the area anytime you need any maintenance needs. And it said Tupelo Property Works. I was like, hold on, I think this is connected to John. I was like, look at this hustler. John's been got a fantastic salesperson. So very, very cool to watch. Where are you trying to take it? Like, we talk about goals. We're at the end of the year. Tell me about how you're setting your goals for next year.
Yeah, so it's interesting that on the real estate side, my goals are changing, right? I want to figure out how to use my assets to build the lifestyle I want, right? We've always talked about lifestyle businesses and having businesses that can provide for the lifestyle we want. On the property work side, I think that we're primed in a unique position to build something that can sell, right? Because people need maintenance, people need service on their properties, and putting the systems, the people in place that could provide those services, I think is a unique value for the community. And creating a cash flowing business is a good value for investors or other owners that would be interested in this type of asset. So for 2023, we're looking to expand not just by customer acquisition, but by business acquisition. I'd love to see our business grow, not from just finding additional customers, but from finding other businesses that could benefit from us putting in place our systems with their current teams. That's something I learned in buying the smaller landscaping business, right? Is that if you buy something where there's not somebody already in place, then you have to be that person.
Yeah.
And I've learned that that's not for me. not at this stage. It affects my lifestyle in a negative way, right? When I like my lifestyle to be there with my kids and be there with my family, like we have the assets to be able to do that now. I don't want to go backwards. So right now, I love to find businesses that net enough where there is a key person in place that can operate that business who's not me. And that just means that it needs to be large enough to actually support that. So that means that there's going to be a lot of stuff that I would have looked at, been excited about, that I would just pass on because it's not big enough.
Yeah,
I agree.
Go ahead, Kevin.
There's so many businesses out there. They're so tempting because you're like, I can make money on that and I can fit it into with my properties. But if it doesn't make a net enough money, it's just going to become your job at some point. It's a great learning experience what you did on all those things. But I do the same thing. Sometimes I look at business and I just say, like, I mean, this is about the same effort if I throw another zero on it.
Yep.
And it's really not like you're still going to spend 25 hours a week doing it. You might as well have another zero on it. It really doesn't make that much difference if you have the ability to take that down. For new guys, taking one of those things on, well, then that can be your job. And you can build up on it. That's okay. But for guys, maybe in our situation, it's not a great use of your time.
A lot of skill sets that are taught in the hands-on portion of it. That's extremely valuable. Let's talk about cash flow, dude. So you come from the real estate, you kept your active income so that you didn't have the stress on the real estate. You get into you obviously felt cash flow issues with real estate when you did leave your W-2. because the first of the month is fantastic, but then you've got all of the expenses, building a team, can I afford it? We've had a lot of conversations like that. Now you've started these service-based businesses, bought some, started some, and there's also cash flows on the business side. And here's what I love and what I'm starting to discover by my own experiences and my friends like you guys is real estate and business is extremely relatable. There's a lot of similarities in the way the operation of the business works on both sides of it. One's on the balance sheet, one sits in the P&L, but at the same time, the struggles are almost the same on both sides. And the fact that you can even use creative financing on either one of these when you're trying to purchase one. What is kind of walk me through what your journey has been for cash flow and some of those struggles and how you've gotten around them from the real estate to now into the business. And cash flow, I'm just meaning for everybody that's watching, it's a simple fact of having money sitting in the bank. I mean, when the bills come in, it's got to go out. So is the money going to be still in the bank when the bills get paid? And how quick can you get the invoices paid so that money's back in the bank? So tell us about that journey, John.
Yeah, man, this is real life. And this is still a journey.
And we all struggle with it. I still have these issues.
I think I'll share a few things. Number one, you've got to focus on education, right? You've got to have education of what's out there, what's available, right? There are products that we use today that I didn't even know existed, right? You know, lines of credit or working capital options, I didn't even know existed. I've heard Kevin talk about factoring, right? Which we haven't started doing that yet, but now I know it's out there, right? Another thing is like your network of people that are around you will often have different financing options and different strategies to solve for cash flow than you might think of, right? They might know about net 30 terms with vendors. I mean, we've opened more net 30 terms or net 60 terms with vendors since Tim started than I had running a multi-million-dollar real estate company, because I didn't know that these companies would let us open up accounts.
Yeah.
Right. But he knew that coming in, and I'm like, oh, we have an account with Tupelo Hardware, or now we have an account with Lowe's or whoever. Just borrowing somebody else's knowledge can be helpful too. And then I think that, like, when I really get down to it, I think that having the right people in the right seats is very, very important. I've heard you talk about having the right person collecting your accounts receivables who really understands that it's not optional, right?
Yeah.
And then also being able to really get your customers to understand where you are in business and what you need, and have that outlined up front, I think has been helpful too. But at the end of the day, like, this is an organic thing that I'm still learning. You know, I'll think I got something figured out, and then Tim will come in and say, hey, we need 3 vehicles. Like, we got to figure this out. So it's organic for me, for sure. Living and breathing.
Kevin, what's some of the financing options that you've come across? John just mentioned the factoring, and I saw that you got John Federa to mention the SBA Bolt.
Yeah, John Federa and I are talking at 2:00 today. I'm going to tape it and put it up in the thing. This guy is so knowledgeable. I mean, you guys should all be setting up calendar events with him. John, you should do that. John Federa, he's a great guy.
Yeah,
he got me going on factoring. And I'll tell you what you could do. Either of you guys could do, because you're mostly residential. If you start getting commercial clients, which everybody should, get bigger clients, you don't have to factor all your invoices. You could just factor your commercial ones. That money then would come in 48 hours. You produce an invoice, you get 90% of that cash flow up front. Then that could be the cash flow to work your other residential ones, right? That's what I do. I don't factor every invoice. I only factor like 25, 30%, but it flows all the cash flow for all the other ones that I don't do. So that's a really good way. There's a Bolt program out right now. John and I are going to talk about it. I'll post it tomorrow. You can get up to $150,000 if you do $500,000 or more and you have good credit, and you can get it in 15 days. It's an SBA program. But here's the other caveat on, because I do a lot more than 500 grand. I can go back and apply 3 times in the same year. So I could go get 450 grand. And then I'm always asking guys, like there's a bank in South Carolina that gave me $300,000 line of credit. I have another one that John got me. John didn't do the 300,000, that gave me 110,000. So you have to ask people, because different banks have different appetites for different businesses, and you have to find out kind of by asking, maybe not by getting your credit run and just being random. Find out who's interested in your type of business, and it's a great way to do it.
I think the credit card, I like the fact that you mentioned that, John, how you took your credit card to your friend and he liquidated it. We're going to get Chris Lamb on here. I haven't communicated with him, but Chris, if you're watching this, you got to come on and be a guest. He's great at leveraging credit, business credit in particular. So if you can get you a business credit card at a 0% interest rate, you can literally take that card. There is companies that will liquidate that card. So they swipe it, get the money off, they give you the money, and then for a fee, they'll do this process for you. Now you've got cash money that you can take, and you can float in between your accounts receivable and accounts payable, so that you've got that cash reserve to keep you cash flowing. And it's interest free for 12 months. So you could let it sit there for a while, but it's a revolving credit line. One thing I've learned compared to revolving credit line and like having a mortgage, when you pay the mortgage off for a loan, when you have a loan, every payment you make, you can't go back and retrieve that equity. But with a line of credit, you can retrieve. You can pay it off, pull it back out, pay it off, pull it back out. That's why if you can go for a line of credit, like a credit card or equity line of credit on your home or your business or your equipment, it's a much better source of leverage than actually having a loan that once you make the payment, you got to refinance a loan to be able to pull money back out.
I agree. Blue Vine is a good one. Bluevine.com. They're pretty aggressive giving credit lines. And yeah, you want credit lines that you can pay up and down. And I do it even when I don't need it. I might pull it to pay a big American Express bill and then just pay it off in 15 days. And then all they do is it's an algorithm. You got to know how to play the credit game.
Yep.
John, what you did with the credit card was funny, because I did something similar to that. I actually bought a business forever ago, a linen business. It was just such a good deal. Talk about, Chris, like shiny new object. I'm just like, I had a landscaping business. I'm like, this thing is so easy. I ended up making money on it, but you ever get those cash advance checks? I did this forever ago. I wrote myself a check, but I already had 2 other credit cards with the 6 months 0%. So then I transferred them over. So I basically had the money for like almost nothing, made a bunch of money and paid it off. There's so many ways you can do stuff. I'm not saying that's the best way to do it, but you have to be innovative. You have to be resourceful. You can find money if you want to.
John, have you looked at plug-in financing in for Tupelo Property Works and your landscaping?
Not yet, but I'm excited about it. I'm excited about having another cash flowing business that will be able to leverage some things as well. So we're still trying to figure that out. And I think it's important, just listening to this conversation, that people really value their credit. I know a lot of people, when they're getting started, they're coming from a place where their credit really wasn't important to them. But a lot of these programs that we're talking about, like they need to see 720 scores. They need to see that you've been responsibly managing money. And that's one of the first things that I tell people that are getting started is, okay, do you know what your credit score is? And are you paying things on time? So just putting that out there as a thought. But
coach us on that for 1 second for everybody, because I think that's an extremely important thing. Because leverage with credit is going to allow you to scale at a much faster rate. It's a lot more difficult without it. So how does somebody with trash credit, where would they start? What's some key points there?
Yeah, so in real estate, you gotta have credit, especially if you're going to be expanding at scale. I guess you could use private money too, but credit is very, very helpful. One of the things that I would say, like if you're starting from a place, is you have to be paying your bills on time. And I know a lot of people say pay off all your credit cards, pay the whole thing off, but don't pay it late if you can't pay the whole thing. Like pay the minimum payment,
Yeah.
because the biggest impact to your score is pay delinquency, right? Are you paying on time or are you late? The next best thing that really impacts your score is whether or not you're over leveraged, right? So there's a bunch of people who have 3 or 4 credit cards, but they might only use one and they'll max it out.
Yeah.
Well, maxing that card out really tanks your score. Ask me how I know. Buying that $14,000 house and maxing the limit out. Well, you haven't really paid anything late, but you maxed the card out when what you should have probably done is spread that charge over multiple cards.
Yeah.
It won't impact your score so much.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of material out there. Chris Lamb's one of my friends too. I would definitely say, he's a lot more knowledgeable on it than I am. We need to get him in here. We need to get him on all of our channels because
we'll
it's a passion area of his. But yeah, I mean, I just think it starts with, I had a guy in my office yesterday, and it just starts with, do you even know where your score is? Like, do you even know that you can get it for free in a lot of different places?
Mm-hmm.
And that you can start to track it over time, and you'll see the improvement as you focus on it. Just like anything else, what we focus on improves.
Absolutely, man. I love that.
Go ahead. Chris Lambert is the one that got me that big line of credit.
Yeah?
Yeah, he's the one.
Yeah, he's awesome, man. I'm excited for him to come on. Credit Karma is what I use. It's free. I can pull up 2 different scores there. And one of the things is when you have to, something I've noticed about managing my credit is with like refinancing properties and taking loans out for vehicles as I expand in my service-based business, is every time someone pulls a credit, it's a hard inquiry and it will drop the score. And I have to manage those pulls and kind of space out when I'm doing my refinances and whatnot, because it'll drop and then you have to build it back up. And then the utilization, like you were talking about, John, staying under that 30% on every card and then keeping it paid off by the end of the month. One way that I do my accounting is I got a business card and I got a personal card. I try to never use a debit card, because a debit card does absolutely nothing for me. And they're cash back cards. They earn points every time I spend. And so my business card, everything goes on it: gas, materials. And what it does is it accrues points, and then I can either take vacations. I can take my mastermind trips is what I do on them. Those are my vacations pretty much. And then if I wanted to, I could cash money out on them. My personal card, everything that can't be acquired towards business as an expense, I use on my personal, and it brings points up as well. So that's a little hack. The debit card doesn't pay you, and it exposes your bank account to fraud. So I never use my debit card. It stays at my house in my drawer. Doesn't even stay on me.
Hey, a cool thing about leveraging your cards, a couple of the banks have some pretty cool programs. Like, I fly a lot, and flying first class, I almost never pay for it because I have a Citibank like Advantage card, and as long as I fly American Air, like they'll upgrade me as soon as I use the card.
Nice.
So this is a nice little hack, and I'm sitting in first class, like feeling all comfortable, and I'm like, "Woo! I didn't pay for this ticket."
I love that.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Use it, Chris. I do the same thing you do. I have cards, and like my girlfriend works for me, and she's a salary employee, even though she doesn't really work. But I just kind of give her a check. But
look, she works if she's having to live with you. Okay.
She has. Hopefully, she won't watch it. She has 2 cards. One's a business card, so she has a business SUV, and she uses for gas. And I tell her, and then she has the blue card, the personal card for like groceries and stuff. And I'm always like on her back, like, do not use this card for that. Like, I'm so serious about it. You have to keep things separate. But you have to get your business expenses. So you got to make sure they're legit and then use them over and over. So I do the same thing you do, Chris. I wouldn't even know where my debit card is. I would never use it.
Well, another thing about that mixing your personal and business is it also pierces the corporate veil. So I've been to several business finance classes lately, and they all talk about if you ever get sued and you've got an LLC or any type of corporation, if they can pierce it by showing that you utilized personal expenditures on a business account, that's their way in. They can go directly to you. That entity is not protecting you anymore. So that's why it's very important to make sure you do have two different cards. Don't be buying your groceries with the business card.
And the last part of that for business, it's you want to hit that 2-year marker, because once you get 2 years, that's when you can get all these lines that we were talking about.
Yep.
So if you're not there, you're like, man, well, I don't even want to listen to this. I'm only 6 months in. Well, then start working on your personal credit and all the things John was just saying, because you're going to get there. And when that opportunity is there, you want to be ready for it. Let's talk about why I invested in you. Because a lot of people ask, how do you get people to invest money in? I'll tell you why I did. I was watching John on Facebook, and we were in the multifamily group and a couple things. I watched him putting good comments. I was like, this is a smart guy. So we did a phone call. We talked, and then we talked a couple times, I think. And then we went to that mastermind, Javier's in Raleigh, and you were just talking about it, and you wanted to talk to me and stuff. And John and I just talked about a lot of stuff, VAs and all kinds of stuff. We hit it off. And because I like to talk about VAs, I gave him like a 20 minutes kind of crash course. And he said, hey, can you follow up with me next week? Go on this podcast. So I did, right? We talked, and then I did about another 30 minutes. And I really broke down how to do it. He calls me like a week later. And I mean, it was a lot of stuff. He already did it. So I remember thinking to myself, this guy makes shit happen. Like, he doesn't just talk, he does it.
Yeah.
And then a couple other things that we had talked about, he really did it. And then one day we were talking about the differences in multifamily and single family, and there's too many people in multifamily. We had a really common outlook on investing and everything. I remember getting off that phone with him, and I was thinking, I will invest with this guy. I like him. He's smart. I trust him, and he makes shit happen. And then when we had the opportunity and he said, hey, I'm thinking of doing this, I did it. And that's how it goes. So when people are like, how does that go? How do you, investors, they're always like looking at what you're doing. And I'm not like interviewing him, but he was just giving me confidence in every phone call. That's why I did it. And you have to, it's not that I couldn't invest in somebody without physically meeting them, but the chances are so much better. You need that proximity and to like have that bond with somebody and like them. So guys who don't want to go to events and there's like, I'm not going to go to Kyle's event, it's this much money, or I'm not going to go to this mastermind, I don't want to pay $2,000. Whatever that event wasn't expensive. But I knew John and myself, we made the effort to go away from our families, fly out there, spend 2 days, and go all in. So it just makes me much more confident with that guy.
And I remember asking you that. I remember asking you, Kevin, why'd you invest with me? And I remember you telling me, like, I see you investing in yourself.
Yeah,
and that kind of reinforced for me, like, these events, you know, they're very uncomfortable for introverts. If you're somebody like me and you're not like, you don't like meeting strangers, and you know, it's it can be nerve-wracking, but the value is not just the investment, the value is the relationship. Like I can text Kevin and he just answers, right? And that gives you more confidence when you're doing things you haven't done before, or you're trying to solve a problem that you haven't solved. And I wholeheartly agree with you. I've done more of these events, probably reinforced by the fact that you were like, hey, I saw you investing in yourself. And that's why I invested.
That's a huge part for me. Chris, I'm sure you would feel the same way. Like when Chris and I see the same guys over and over, I'm so much more likely to do it. Even this roofing company that Sean actually got under contract, it's going to probably close in March. There's a reason we're pushing it back. He went all the way out to Nashville and he made that effort and go away from his family. It's not like I'm keeping track on him, keeping tallies, but it stands out to me. It's very different than some guy sending me Facebook messages. it's very different when they make all that effort.
Invest in yourself, man. It's the best ROI.
Yeah.
ROI. John, you've got Grab the Map properties. You do buy and holds. You do flips, fix and flips. You do wholesaling. And then you have a coaching company where you teach all of your experience and strategies that you've done. You've got a podcast. And then I see you all over social media. Tell us about your coaching company, because it's a good segue from investing in yourself and having a mentor, which I think has been one of the reasons for your success is getting around experienced people that have already traveled the journey you're trying to travel.
Absolutely. Like I've been hesitant to do this, but I've just received confirmation. You know, there's so many people out here that are trying to get in this business. There's so many people that want to learn. I've been impacted by so many mentors. Like if I try to list them, I can't, because there's so many people, like Kevin was saying, that I get little things from, right? It might be that I'm going to this person for marketing help. It might be that I'm going this person for service-based business help. I'm going this person for help with VAs. I'm going to this person for just like cash flow management, right? Like just so many things. And so I wanted to create a space for people to have accountability in their goals, where they can access people that can provide those various types of support. And this is something I'm just getting into right now. It's a pretty small private accountability group. A lot of people will find the benefit of having someone who deeply gets to know them, gets to know their business, and really tries to provide the accountability that we all need to move our goals forward. Very excited about that. And I appreciate you for mentioning that, because that is something we're trying to do more of. Yeah.
So in the comments, when we get off, will you please put the link so people can track over to your place and look into that? It's the reason we're all where we are, because we decided to invest in ourselves. And that's exactly what you're doing, is giving people an opportunity to invest in themselves. What else do you have going on outside of your real estate and business that you want to share before we close it out?
Man, I'm constantly trying to learn, having the time of my life. Business is fun. I have an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old. I'm coaching my sons. Well, actually, my daughter and my son are playing on the same basketball team right now.
Nice.
So I'm coaching both of them. It's like the best thing to get to do on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
And I'll stop here, but they literally, we get home from church and they change into their basketball uniforms, even though the game might not be till like 4 or 5 at night. And I'm like, why are y'all doing that? They're like, because my dad's my coach. It's so cool.
That's awesome, dude.
So I'm having fun with that, growing these businesses, setting 2023 goals now. I know we normally share them with each other. So it'll be interesting what falls off the list and what gets on the list for next year. But I see what you all are doing in this group, and it's so impactful. I can't help but try to like figure out where I can play the video. I try to do it on a commute or while I'm working on something in the background. And man, I love the value that you all are bringing in the blue collar.
Yeah, thanks, man. We've had some amazing speakers like yourself. Where do they find you on social media?
Everywhere. I'm at Grab the Map. So right now we are if it's me, it's on Facebook. If it's our team, it's TikTok or Instagram at Grab the Map.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and your Facebook group as well. You can tell us about that, and also put it in the link so people can see it. It's a great group.
Yes, I also run a group called the Wealth and Real Estate Facebook group. You just type in Wealth in Real Estate, and that's a group that I'm running. I've got some great people helping me continue to provide value in that group as well.
Man, I appreciate your story. Appreciate your friendship. I know people had a lot of takeaways. Don't forget to put your links in the comments. Dude,
We'll do that.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
It's great.
All right.
All right. Talk to y'all later.
All right. Bye.